Hey guys, welcome to case study 2. The objective of these graphs is to explore the correlation between the theory of intelligence and their impact upon impression management. For each of these graphs there is a correlation coefficient drawn. First one here is self-promotion. Self-promotion here is where individuals point out their abilities or accomplishments in order to be seen as competent towards observers. Here you can see slightly that there is a slight relationship between the increase of theory of intelligence and them partaking in the self-promotion impression management. You can see this here through our trend line. Next one is ingratiation, where individuals do favours or use flattery to elicit an attribution of likability from others. From here, this is also a positive correlation between the increased theory of intelligence and impression management. Exemplification, where people self-sacrifice or go above and beyond the call of duty in order to gain the attribution of dedication from observers. Here is also another positive linear relationship between the increase of a theory of intelligence to a higher impression management. From here we are using intimidation, and this is where people signal their power or potential to punish in order to be seen as dangerous by observers. You can see here that the increase of the theory of intelligence here, so a larger entity mindset, that there's a decrease in the impression management points. And here you can see with the correlation coefficient, it can be seen that there is a negative relationship between these. Back here we have supplication. This is where individuals advertise their weaknesses or shortcomings in order to elicit an attribution of being needy from observers. Here is the greater the entity mindset, there is more use of the impression management scores, and they're going to try harder to impress. Wrapping this up, what this is sort of a summarisation of all of these factors. And from here it can clearly be seen with this trend line here that the greater the entity mindset, the more that they're going to try and use impression management when meeting new people. So this draws us to the conclusion, or not a conclusion, but to a hypothesis, that the greater the entity mindset, the greater the impression management. This can also be This is supported by using an inferential statistical analysis, and for that we've used the t-test. We've got two hypotheses for this t-test. The alternative hypothesis is those with a greater entity mindset, a higher score within the theory of intelligence, are more likely to partake in higher levels of impression management. But the null hypothesis is that having either an entity or incremental mindset has no effect on the effect of impression management taken. As a result of this t-test, the probability was below 0.05, and this drew the conclusion that there was a rejection of a null hypothesis, meaning that through this test, that the alternative hypothesis, that those with a greater theory of intelligence, a higher score in the theory of intelligence, are more likely to partake in impression management.
Impression management theory is the effort to control or influence the perception of other people. One way to do this is by presenting ourselves in ways that lead others to evaluate us positively. The theory also explains that we try to make these perceptions consistent with our own goals. Sometimes it can be seen as a conscious decision, and at times it isn't. According to Jones and Pittman 1982, there are many different strategies that we use to convey a desired image to others, such as self-promotion, ingratiation, exemplification, intimidation, and supplication. In this case study, the two main strategies highlighted by Tass et al. 95 are bragging, which occurs when a person exaggerates their positive qualities and hides their negative qualities, which is demonstrated by both Ned and Joe, while Jill and Paula demonstrate modesty, which occurs when we present our qualities in a way that is neither boastful nor self-depreciating. Ned can be seen as bragging when he mentions that his professor will be presenting his findings at the national conference. He makes use of self-promotion when he states that his results are going to change the way psychologists think about the development of violent tendencies during sport. And it can also be suggested that he is intimidating his fellow students when he mentions that he will be able to attend any graduate school he chooses once his findings have been released. Joe intimidates his fellow teammate by bragging that he is seen as the most popular player on the side and that he will make the team because he has been associated with Joe. He also then self-promotes his family's wealth by mentioning that every summer he plays netball in other countries and that he only gets the best treatment wherever he goes. Jill is a modest player and does not like to be in the spotlight. This can be seen when she does not mention her own accomplishments and believes that she is an average player. She also feels that she is lucky that the team helps her to stay motivated to train, which can be seen as exemplification. Paula self-handicaps herself by stating how good Jill is and all the awards that she has won. By doing this, she protects her ability and self-image as well as removing herself from the spotlight. She feels that by mentioning her weaknesses, she is protected against future failures and embarrassment. According to Vo, Buurmaster and Kirako 2005, the impression management system requires people to change their behaviors to create the desired impression. It can therefore be said it depletes the resources we need to regulate our behaviors. Self-regulation is believed to be an infinite resource, and it is depleted throughout the day as we regulate our behaviors to accomplish our goals, as stated by Buurmaster and Heatherton 1996. As our resources diminish, we are unable to consistently regulate our behaviors. Self-promotion and intimidation would use the most energy as it needs consistent self-monitoring to maintain a high social impression. People that use self-promotion or intimidation will be highly motivated when engaged in health behaviors due to them wanting a good performance to reinforce a high social impression. Supplication and ingratitude would use less energy due to not requiring a consistent upkeep of their impression management. They will therefore be less motivated as they have no reason to reinforce their social impression.
Ned's audience is his peers from his psychology class, due to there being close relationships with them all, as there is only a small number of them within the class. They all have a decent understanding and knowledge of each other's interpersonal relationships. This could influence Ned's impression management towards them, as he could continue bragging to his peers, and just one small adjustment to his story could be noticed and picked up by them immediately. Therefore, Ned requires high levels of energy to keep his story from changing the slightest. These high levels are required and needed to maintain his story, and if it becomes compromised or unwound, it will require even more energy to regulate his positive. Joe has no previous relations with his audience, as his audience has only just transferred to the university. His first impression to the new student would be bragging, which is a way to get him to see him in a positive manner. According to Buurmaster Tyson Hutton 1989, desire to make a good impression entails one will present oneself as favourable as possible. Joe is able to act however he would like, as the new student has never met him before. This first impression Joe gives, however, will be everlasting, and every time he speaks to the new audience, he will need to keep this charade going. This will require maximum effort to maintain for each meeting he encounters with someone. And according to Vose, Buurmaster and Sirocco 2005, some people feel the need to change their behaviour and express themselves in various/different ways. If Joe's personality is true, then it shouldn't require too much energy for him to maintain his desired impression. Jill is talking to a new female player who she has no previous relations with. Due to this, Jill is able to lie. Jill takes the spotlight effect off herself by trying to downplay and not talk about her netball abilities too much. Her housemate Paula knows how good she really is though. Jill does this so that she is able to get a positive evaluation from the new team member. Due to Jill trying to keep her true abilities out of the conversational topic, she requires a lot of energy and needs to gauge/remember her audience before engaging in future conversations. Paula is being modest towards new potential teammate as they have no previous relationship. She sways the spotlight/attention towards others in the group. An example of this is when she says, "Don't forget about Jill from exercise science." Paula requires little input as she is not lying to her audience, rather shifting the attention/spotlight towards others. However, Paula does require greater energy to maintain the effort of if the audience was bigger. It would require more conscious thought to keep her out of the spotlight. According to Tice, Butler, Moraven and Stilwell 1995, modesty is a non-boastful self-presentation but isn't necessarily one that is less favourable towards him/herself.
As stated previously in this discussion, we can estimate how many cookies we predict each roommate will eat. As a result, we predicted Jill will eat 4 cookies, Paula would have 2, Joe would have 5 cookies and Ned would have 6. A study by Baumeister in 1989 discovered that presenting oneself as favourably to a friend or modestly to a stranger goes against natural inclinations and takes more effort when managing impressions. Participants were tested by their ability to continue doing 3-digit multiplication equations, a task that requires effort to continue. Participants that went against their natural inclinations when presenting themselves to a stranger or a friend used more energy and gave up on the task sooner than those who presented themselves positively to the stranger and modestly to a friend. This experiment explains predictions made in regards to Ned's behaviour in that he is using self-promotion to be seen as a threat to people who know him. This also explains resource depletion in Jill's case, as she is presenting herself as modestly to a stranger. Her energy consumption is increased further by the fact that she finds one of the players attractive and wants to impress her. Paula is depleting her resources by presenting herself as less than capable than she really is, by emphasising other players' strengths, going against her natural desire to present herself in a more positive manner. Joe emphasises his interpersonal skills rather than his competencies. We don't believe that impression management and self-regulation would always have this seemingly detrimental effect on behaviour. If a person had great desire to do an activity or action, we believe that this would be an exception. Willpower and determination can counterbalance the lack of internal resources needed to participate or complete activities. These findings can have many implications for us as future teachers. As many of us experience but are possibly not aware of, we believe that there may be a correlation between confidence and impression management. If a teacher is not naturally confident in front of their class, they may need to act confident, therefore displaying unnatural, forced qualities or behaviours. This, in turn, may deplete them of the resources needed to complete their daily tasks. This may be similar for students, especially in early teens. For example, in grade 7, students generally tend to display unnatural behaviour in order to try and fit in, make friends, or make themselves look popular. This will result in them not having the resources needed to complete their schoolwork and additional daily tasks to the best of their ability. So, as teachers, we must create an environment where our students feel accepted, comfortable to be themselves. That way they are not wasting energy on impression management and false impressions.